The parish that I was from back in Michigan, where I'm from, I remember one Sunday that this gospel was read, and the deacon was reading it, and instead of saying the 10 lepers, he said the 10 leopards that were cleansed. So that became a joke among all the kids for quite a while. So it wasn't 10 leopards, it was 10 lepers, which in the Gospels is kind of a generic term for any type of pretty horrible skin disease. And if you know lepers, they were often ostracized outside of communities. They were often unclean. They couldn't participate in the rest of life. So it was a pretty bad lot to have in life. And this particular reading is on this Sunday. Is also the reading that is done whenever you do like a Thanksgiving service, or you're going to do like on Thanksgiving Day. If you celebrate a service on Thanksgiving Day, the gospel reading you read is this particular gospel reading, which is all about giving thanks. And so we have this amazing example of someone, all 10 of them were cleansed, right? And they all had something really transformative in their lives, and yet only one thought to turn around and give thanks. Now it's important to note that this particular leper who was cleansed was a Samaritan. So what other stories do we have in the life of Jesus where it's only a Samaritan that shows forth virtue? This is where you answer. The Good Samaritan. It's like I lobbed it up to you. Basically gave it to you. The Good Samaritan, right? That's the other story where it's a foreigner. And this is also a very important detail. The first thing I like to think about is the reality that this particular man had some qualities or virtues in him that allowed him to be spontaneously grateful, and the other ones didn't. And that's very simply that he had cultivated an attitude and a heart of humility and of gratitude. And we see that the surprise is that this man is a Samaritan where the other ones are Jews. And the whole point of this is to illustrate the fact that sometimes those who have it all, right? Because from the gospel's perspective, the Jews are the promised people, they're the chosen people. The Samaritans were kind of really second-class citizens in Palestine at this time. And it's this marginal person, right, who's on the margins of society who gives thanks, but the people who have a better social lot in life who do not. And this is even true in our day, right? It's the same pattern, right? People who are poor, right, give more as a percentage of their income than people who are rich. It's a fact. If you go further and further down, people who we would consider the working poor are the most generous and charitable segment of our society. Why is that? Often because they're more grateful. You ever been out to a restaurant with somebody, and they go out to restaurants a lot? They're a real pain to be with, right? Because they're like, that food's no good, send it back, right? You people, they get really picky, and it ruins the whole experience, because all they're doing is complaining and being difficult the whole time, and they're not happy at all, right? Why aren't they happy? Because they're never grateful. If you want to be happy, I guarantee that gratitude is one of the biggest keys to being happy. And in this case, we're shown kind of that these other lepers should really be ashamed, right? They had been healed of something tremendous, and they didn't even think to give thanks. I think the analogy in our own life is that if we are well off financially in our social status, we really have to be careful that we don't take things for granted. Our blessings, the ways that God has healed us, that we don't forget to give thanks to God and actually say it. Or other people in our lives, if we're blessed, right, with a great family, a great wife, great relationships, and we take that for granted, right, we should be ashamed of ourselves. And so this gospel is a real warning, right, of what it does is it illustrates in an extreme case what disgratitude looks like. So when you and I are ungrateful for things, we're like a leper who's been cleansed, right? But hasn't gone to give thanks for it. That's what this story is. And we can even kind of apply this to our lives in the church. If we're in the church, right, sometimes, and if we were raised in the faith, sometimes we take for granted our faith. Because it's just always there, right? It's just like the air around you which you breathe, and you take it for granted and you're not grateful for it. Just like these Jews who kind of had, right, they were the people of the promise, right? And they took for granted this special place and privilege that they had growing up. But the Samaritan didn't grow up in the faith. And he's the one who gave thanks. Because he knows, right? This is why poverty is often praised in the spiritual life in the church. This is why we're encouraged to give money. Not just so that we can help people who are in need, but because we want to voluntarily make ourselves poorer so that we can be more sensitive to the needs of others and help make us more grateful people. The other thing I want to point out in this story, which I think is almost goes unnoticed, is that Jesus doesn't heal them first, right? What does he do? He tells them to go what? Go show yourself to the priests, right? And they go. I mean, I think this is amazing. I think that, maybe as a leper, you'd be a pretty jaded person, and you might say, I heard this guy heals people, and you ask him to heal you, and he says, go to the priests, Like he's sending you off, like he's pushing you aside on somebody else, and you'd be like, whatever, this guy's a phony, and you'd be all bitter, and you'd walk away, right? I'm surprised like that didn't happen, right? But instead, all 10, maybe because they're desperate, maybe because they're men of faith, we don't know, but they go. Right? They go without proof. They go without having been given any sort of promise or guarantee, and then they're healed on the way. Okay, so this is how I want you to apply this and think about this. That this is very much the way our whole spiritual life operates. The church gives us all kinds of spiritual kind of exercises that we're supposed to do, right? Like, service on Sunday, communion, all the sacraments, funerals, baptisms, all these things to be a part of. It gives us things like private prayer rules that we're supposed to do on our own at home. It gives us like fasting and almsgiving and, volunteering our time to help those in need, right? It gives us all these different tools that we might have to grow in virtue. And we don't necessarily reap the benefits immediately, right? God asks us to step out in faith and to do these things, right? To go and fast, to go and give our money away, and doesn't necessarily promise us anything right off the bat. And the whole spiritual life is like this. This is all kind of like a hospital, right? We're given all these different medicines we're supposed to take, confession and fasting. And it doesn't heal us right away. But what does it do? It heals us along the way. And that's to point out that the spiritual life is a process. It's not some sort of light switch that goes on and off, right? I think in a lot of evangelical Protestant world, you have this mentality of, right, like you have an experience, a religious experience, and it's a light switch and everything changes for you. And I think that kind of, that's definitely an attitude that a lot of people have in America, and we can even have because we live in that culture. And I think it's a bit misguided because it neglects this whole idea of process, right? That your salvation, right, your healing comes along the way. But what do you have to do first? You've got to go, right? You've got to go to the priest. You have to go like Jesus tells you to. If you just sit down and you don't go, you're not going to be healed along the way. And so all of the spiritual practice that we have in our life, if we want healing in our own life, if we want personal transformation, if we want to experience what the spiritual life feels like abundantly, we have to take some risk. We have to do something that costs us something. And along the way, we'll find that we're healed. And hopefully, we don't forget to give thanks. Lord Jesus Christ.
Lord,